Okay, hello. I hope you've had an excellent weekend. We're just going to have a look at some multiplying and dividing negatives. Again, not a very long lesson today because we're just going to make sure you're 100% short with everything here. As always, if you'd like to have a go at the starter, that'd be wonderful. I paused the video here, then I'm going to go through this. Again, this is just what we did last lesson, but basically just recapping it. Always useful in general. Have a go at this, please, and pause it here, and I'll have a go as well. Okay, so let's talk about BEDMAS. BEDMAS is brackets, then it's exponents, then it's division and multiplication, read left to right, and then addition and subtraction, read left to right. So in general, if you have a question with just addition and subtraction, a lot of people think you have to do the addition first, but it's not. You read left to right. So make sure that happens, and the same for division and multiplication. In this first question, we don't have any brackets, we don't have any exponents, but we do have a multiplication, don't we? So that's going to be 5 times 2, which is 10. So literally write -2 plus 10 plus 10. And then if you remember, we talked about how to add numbers together, especially with negatives involved. You're going to start at -2 on a number line, then you're going to add 10, so go right 10, and then you're going to add another 10, so go right 10. And that should get you 18. So if you got 18, good job. For this one, there's brackets and a number. Remember, if a number's next to a bracket, it just means times. So you can quite literally write 3 times and then open the bracket again. And then inside the bracket, there's only 2 operations, right? There's a plus and division. And we know we do division first because of BEDMAS. So I'm just going to write -1 plus, and then I'm going to remember 14 divided by 2 is 7. So we've done the first part, we've done this part. Now it's just -1 plus 7, which is 6. So it's just going to be 3 times 6, which is 18. Look at that, 2 18s in a row. And last but not least, it looks horrific, but it's not that bad. We've got 2 brackets, so you're just going to do them independently. So even as I look at this, I can see there's a plus, a minus, and then there's a power or an exponent. And then in the other bracket, there's just a minus. So I already know that I'm going to do this bit first, but I'm also going to do this in the same step because, well, it's inside a bracket, so I know it's going to have to happen. If you remember, 3 squared does not mean 3 times 2. It means times the big number by it, how many times the small number says. So in our case, it's going to be 3 times 3, which is 9. So in that bracket, I've got 8 plus 29 minus 9. So all I've done there is this one bit, and then I know it's going to be divided by 4 at some point. And then again, remember, BEDMAS says addition and subtraction. You're just going to read it left to right. So quite literally, we're going to do 8 plus 29, which is 37. Take away 9 is going to get me 28, so I've got 28 there, divided by 4, which gets me 7. I'm a bit upset that's not 18, would have been the perfect. Anyway, hopefully that makes sense. Again, email me or something if that didn't make sense, or if I'm speaking too quickly or any of that. But that was everything we did last lesson, so if you understood all of that, you are amazing. Here we go. So as I said, this lesson is not a long one because the key to this is just to follow the next few lines. So if you're multiplying 2 numbers or dividing, so if multiplying or dividing 2 numbers, look at the signs of both the numbers. If the signs are the same, the answer will be positive. If the signs are different, then the answer will be negative. And so quite literally, just look at the signs. That tells you if it's positive or negative, and then just multiply or divide like normal. And I put this image here because sometimes people like imagery instead of words. But effectively, you can see it's got a plus, plus, and a smiley, or minus, minus, a smiley, so they're positive. And if they have different signs, he's unhappy, so that's negative. I don't know. Sometimes people like images. I don't know. I just try to help. So here's a bunch of examples. -3 times -3. Both of the signs are the same, so I know my answer is positive. And then 3 times 3 is 9. Don't overcomplicate it. That's it. This one says 8 times -5. That 8 is technically a positive. I know it doesn't have a plus sign there, but it is. So it's a positive times a negative, which instantly tells me the answer is negative. And then 8 times 5 is 40. For -16 divided by -8, they both have the same sign, so my answer is going to be positive, and then 16 divided by 8 is 2. 27 divided by -3, they're different signs, so it's going to be a minus, and then 27 divided by 3 is 9. And then negative blah, blah, blah divided by negative blah, 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 they have the same sign, so my answer is going to be positive. And then 132 divided by 12 is 11. Okay, so those are the examples. Now, as you've probably seen in a bunch of my lessons, there's a ridiculous amount of questions on the next page. I'm not saying do all of them. I would say do 8 or 9. Just pick them. The only difference is like the green ones tend to be easier than the yellow ones. And the only reason the red one's hard is because we have division in there. And that's that. So have a go at 8 questions or whatever. Do as many as you want. Let's be brutally honest. I'm not going to check. I am going to go through the bottom 3 questions, D, E, and F separately. But have a go, and then I'll flash up the answers, and then we'll go through D, E, and F. So do those questions, pause the video, unpause, there's your answers. Cool? So check those, go back and forth, I don't know, and then see how you do. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go through D, E, and F. So, because the only operations here are both multiplication, we can just do this in any order. So I'm just going to read left to right. 7 times negative 2 is negative 14. Negative 14 times negative 3, well, I know negative and negatives are positive. 14 times 3, I'm pretty sure, is 42. Negative 1 times negative 8, that's positive 8. And then 8 times negative 4, they're both different, so it's going to be a negative. 8 times 4 is, oh no, what are you doing? 8 times 4 is 32, so my answer then is just negative 32. Negative 32. And then negative 2 times negative 2 is 4. If I do 4 times negative 2, that gives me negative 8. If I do negative 8 times negative 2, that gets me positive 16. You could have also done 4 times 4 there and just like treated this as 4 and then treated this as 4, and then you would have had 4 times 4 and it would have been easy. But do it however you want. So that's the basic skill. You need to be confident with these multiplication and division of different negatives. And the reason you do is because we're going to do BEDMAS with them. So everything's exactly the same. There's just a quick conversation to be had at the bottom. So effectively, you have to be careful with negatives in brackets, because here I've got negative 2 squared, right? Now that tells you that's negative 2 times negative 2, right? That's what squared means. It means multiplied by itself. So this gets the answer 4. However, if I have negative 2 squared, that's me basically saying like it's 6, take away 2 squared, for example. You just do the 2 squared on its own. And you just remember that that's the minus signs in front of it. So effectively, minus 2 times 2 is negative 4. And so what ends up happening here, let's just get rid of that bottom so it's not confusing at all. What happens here is like you get negative 2 inside the bracket and that causes issues. And then if you have negative 2 on the outside of the bracket, that also causes issues. So just be wary, right? If it's inside the bracket, you know it's going to be a positive answer because it's negative times a negative. And if it's outside the bracket, as in there are no brackets, you do the exponent first, so 2 squared, and it just happens to have a minus sign in front of it. Hopefully that makes sense. Let's see what that looks like in questions. Okay, so each one of these is slightly different, so let's just have a look at why I've put them in here. 7 minus 5 is 2. So let's do 2 cubed, and then we're going to times that by minus 4. I know in BEDMAS we said the first thing is brackets, but inside the brackets we're just looking for whatever the operations are. So here, even though it says minus 4 in brackets, there is nothing to do there. It is just minus 4. So don't worry about that. You can just leave it as minus 4 outside the bracket. Then 2 cubed, remember that's 2 times 2 times 2, which is 8, times by negative 4. And that gets you, well, positive times a negative is a negative. And then 8 times 4 is 32. So that's pretty simple. For this one, first I'm going to do the exponent, so it's going to be, well, I know, again, there's brackets, but again, if you look at the bracket, they're just telling you it's negative. There's nothing to do. So the next thing to do is the exponent. Remember, 6 squared is not 6 times 2, it's 6 times 6, so that's 36, plus a negative times a negative is a positive, so it's going to be positive 42. So then when you work that out, you just get a 78. For this one here, 7 times 9 take away 5 squared. Here it is, in the exact case, that minus that's going to cause issues. But what actually is happening is I'm like, it's 7 times 9 take away 5 squared. What's 5 squared? 25. So I'm going to write all that out again. It's 7 times 9 take away 25. Yeah, notice how it's not a positive 25. And then 7 times 9, 63, take away 25, gets you roughly, what, 38? And then this horrific looking thing, I've got a bunch of negatives, but inside this bracket, so we have negative 4, which is just inside a bracket, then take away 2. Now, if you remember on a number line, that means that you start at negative 4, and then you go left 2. So it's going to get you to negative 6, isn't it? So it's 5 times, I'm going to keep the bracket there, negative 6, and then I'm going to close the bracket, and then squared. And the reason for that is because the bracket and the 2's already outside the bracket, so let's not forget that. Then it's going to be negative 6 squared. Now remember, if I just quickly grab a different color, negative 6 times negative 6 is what it's asking. A negative times a negative is a positive. A 6 times 6 is 36. So what you end up having is 5 times 36, which gets you 180. If you want to know how I did that so quickly, the 5 times, I just did 10 times and divided by 2. 10 times 36 is 360, divided by 2 is 180. Okay, so effectively that is everything over. If this everything made sense and each one of these made sense, then have a go at these 10 questions. This is the only 10 questions. We're not going to do anything else. I know there's these, but I'm not going to go through them. So have a go at these 10. There is a worded question at the bottom. Have a go. I'll go through this in 5 seconds. Pause it and then read it. Okay, right, let's do this. Let's start with the first one. I'm just going to zoom in a bit, I think. Yeah. So, all I see here is -7 squared. Remember, that means -7 times -7. So that's going to be a positive 49. So what we have is we have -10 times by 2, take away 49. -10 times 2 is -20. -20 take away 49 is going to get you -69. Watch out there, because I know a lot of people would turn that into a positive somehow, or something else would happen. But it's -20 on a number line, subtract another 49, right? Okay, again for our exponent, we have -5 all squared. So again, that's -5 times -5. That's a positive 25. It just happens to have a subtraction sign in front of it as well. And then -8 times -6 is going to be 48, positive 48. So my answer is going to be 48 take away 25, which is 23. This is 4 times -9 take away 9. We're going to do 4 times -9 first, which is -36, and then subtract another 9. So we're going to get another -36, subtract another 9, gets you -45. -3 all squared is positive 9, because -3 times -3. I've got 5, subtract -4 times 9. So we're going to do -4 times 9 first, which gets you -36. Sorry, my phone went off. -36. So I've got 5, subtract -36. Minus, remember, is a plus. So this is effectively 5 plus 36, which gets me 41. And then last on this side, 7 take away 8 is 1, -1, times by 2 squared, which is 4. And that gets me just -4, doesn't it? So zoom out a bit. So yeah, I will zoom out fully when we're done all of this. So if, whatever's helpful for you. And over here, so -4 all squared is positive 16. So we have 6 times 5, which is 30. So 30 plus 16 is 46. Here we have 8 minus 5 times 16, because 4 times 4. 5 times 16 is 80, so we have 8 subtract 80, which is -72. Inside this bracket, we have 9 plus minus 8. And if you remember, plus minus next to each other just means subtract. So it's 9 take away 8, which is 1. So we have 3 times, in bracket 1 squared. Well, 1 squared is just 1. So 3 times 1 is just 3. Here we have -6 all squared, that's positive 36. We have 10 times -5 here, so that's -50. So we have -50 plus 36, which is -14. And then last but not least, well, actually, we're going to do the worded question as well. What's the first thing we do? The exponent. So we're going to do 2 times 2 times 2, which is 8. Then we're going to do the multiplication. So -7 times -4 is going to be positive. 7 times 4 is 28. So we have 28 plus 8, which is 36. Cool. So again, those are like as hard as the questions really get. That's what the little test is going to be as well. And there are also going to be something like this on the assignment. So as long as you're comfortable with all of them, great. If there's anything that you're not happy with, send me an email and let me know. And then this last question, it says if 6 negative integers are multiplied, what will the result be? Let's not overcomplicate it. Let's just make it -1. So -1 times -1 times -1 times -1 times -1 times -1. That's so negatives times the negatives are positive, right? So that's going to be a positive there. And then when we times it by this negative, it's going to be a negative. Then when we times it by this negative, it's going to become positive. Then it's going to become negative. And then finally, it's going to become positive. So whenever you have an even amount of things being multiplied, the answer is always positive. Weirdly enough, if you have an odd number, you get a negative. Okay. That is everything then. So hopefully that made sense. Hopefully that's wonderful. And I will see you tomorrow for some fractions. Woo woo! Cool. Anyway.